prior to introducing
So what
stream.
what segue segment did this have to do with? Anything that was on the roster, or is this just a thought you wanted to
No,
talk
like
about?
it is on the roster. So I was talking to you earlier about how I was watching your video where you talked to people in your Discord, people who watch your stream.
I have that over here. I did a nice Discord fan chat, which is something that I've been talking about doing a little bit more of. Maybe if I don't feel like I have any content on my channel to really talk about, just open up the Discord. If people want to hop in, they can. If they don't want to hop in, they just don't, So I've been thinking about that. Yeah. Okay.
And so what led into this is we were talking about we were just talking about younger girls being interested in older men and trying to educate
both
parties,
girls,
but educate younger girls why being with older men or older people in general
it's very inappropriate.
Is inappropriate.
1000%.
And I was talking, and so I got into why I wouldn't necessarily, or I didn't get into it yet, but presented why I don't think dangerous is always the right word, but rather inappropriate.
Really quick, I agree with you. I just want to be very explicitly clear because I know how internet narratives can run. Stay tuned for the explanation because I actually been thinking about this as well, and it's a conversation between different types of, I would say, SA. So it's weird that I've been thinking about this week too, of I'm trying to have an actual, I've just been thinking about stuff like that. But go ahead. Sorry, I didn't do that.
So in one portion of the video, you were talking about family channels, and within that conversation,
that was the first portion of the video.
You talked about introducing child labor laws for kids who are present on social media and stuff like that. And then you started talking about child actors, and you didn't really get into your opinion on child actors.
I don't have I don't have a very fleshed out opinion on it. That's why.
So I'm just I'm going through my thought process. So then I got to so you said something in that video that prompted me to think about how we could put in different regulations for the amount of time children work in these industries, but you don't any
industry actively time worked when it comes to anything, when it comes to working at fast food or on a farm or whatever else,
Yes, so there's limitations on time and amount of work, but there's not really guidance in terms of the interaction with that child with the outside world. Or with their cast. That's a better way to say it. Not the outside world. So then I was thinking of my own experience.
I need to flesh that out.
Yes, I'm continuing. So I was thinking of my experience, even just being in local theater.
When I said I need to flesh that out, what I mean is I don't know what you're saying.
I know.
So I think what I think you're saying is we have laws that implement how much time you can work, as well as some of the restrictions in what you can do at work. For instance, you're talking about actual Hollywood, but you can't use a meat slicer, or you can't work after a certain amount of time. But you're saying we don't have any regulations on the way that people are supposed to engage with those children outside of their workplace dynamic.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I just needed to make sure
in
I
the
understood
workplace.
What you're saying. Yeah, or inside the workplace dynamic, the way that you would talk to them.
Yes.
Gotcha. Go ahead.
So, when I was in local theater, it was a thing, it was desirable to hang out with the older adults in there. And if you were hanging out with not even older adults, but older kids, if you're 13 years old, hanging out with the kids that are 18, who are then hanging out with the people who are 20, 21, you want to be part of that group.
Yeah, because you think it's cool to be hang out with the older kids. You want to be seen. It's the weirdest thing is as an adult, as a child, you want to be seen as an adult. But then as an adult, you wish you were a fucking child again.
But then, the way that the people in the older crews take in the younger people is by doing, adult things with those younger people.
Okay, what do you mean by adult things? Just
inviting them into parties, adult conversations.
Right, okay.
Stuff like that. You...
Instead of setting a hard boundary that this is a child or this is a teenager, which is still a young person and we shouldn't really be interacting too much. We need to set a boundary.
Yes.
Gotcha, okay.
And so I was thinking about, that part of it. And for child actors, it's probably similar and probably to a worse degree rather than, some losers in local theater, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And then then it got me thinking about why as a society as a whole, and I've been thinking about this with the change of the season, we are so focused on looking ahead and be, instead of being like focused in the present.
Okay.
I don't know as a society like how long that's been like happening, or if it's been to such like a degree as it is now, where like in like August or maybe even after 4th of July, you start seeing fall stuff like seasonally, right?
Sure. What do you mean when you say we're not focusing enough on the present and we're focusing too much on the future? Like in context to like talking about child celebrities.
So like children, we just want to be with the older crowd. We want to be doing the older crowd thing so much.
Yeah, that we don't like sit and then like what's going on now.
Mhm.
Sure. Okay.
And then I think that like even when you're younger, like we don't, even like on a peer level, children don't allow children to be children. If you're 11 years old and you're still playing with Barbies, you're going to get made fun of.
Right, for playing with
and
Barbies.
It's because
okay.
like that's
okay.
where like you're also starting to engage in things where you act older than what you are. And this is what I was telling you before, that I don't have like a completely like made up, like I don't know exactly the conversation I want to have, but these are all my thoughts about the topic.
Sure.
Because then all of that also, I was going to say leads into, but I guess more of it doesn't help, that the way we provide education to children does not help that. It's like we have two forces against each other. On one hand, we have children desiring to do things and act older than what they are, and then at the same time we provide education at like a lower level than what they're capable of, which I think exacerbates the desire to do things that are like you're too young for, without the understanding of why they're not age appropriate. So
okay, hold on, just because you're going fast. What do you mean by we don't supply? Because I agree with you that kids want to be older and they're looking to the future and they're not like living in the now and they're not like enjoying their adolescence, and that has a whole conversation. Like people want to be older because it's seen as cooler and more mature, and I get that. But then you talk about how we don't. I agree, we don't educate young people properly on issues, on these types of issues, especially when it comes to consent and boundaries, which I think is what you're getting at, kind of, right? But what do you mean that we don't explain it to them in a way that they're like it sounds like what you're saying is we underestimate their emotional maturity, and so we don't explain to them correctly.
Yes.
But I feel like I mean, maybe I just feel like we're not explaining it to people at all, because maybe we don't even know how to explain to a 13-year-old why is it wrong to sleep with a 30-year-old. It is wrong. But how do you explain that to a 13-year-old who's in the mindset that they are an adult already, and that like, oh, it's so cool that this older man is interested in me, and they're interested in me because I'm a grown, and they can acknowledge that I'm a grown up.
Exactly.
How do you explain to that kid that concept?
Exactly, and that's what I'm getting at. I feel like there are ways to. I mean, I can't write a book right now and tell you what it is, but I think that more effort needs to be put in, but we could probably already think of ways to educate really teens, I think, is the focus group.
Yeah, both men and women, because like, you know, they're dumb 30-year-old, well, you're a 30-year-old predator, let's be real, that's engaging with this 13-year-old. If they got this information at 13 as well, the boys, then maybe they would have grown up to not be pieces of shit.
Yeah, and I'm not even thinking 30. 30 is like a very large... Like,
you think like 13 and 18?
I think, yeah.
That's also inappropriate. Okay,
I think that, or even like, again, like I think like on like the local realistic level, you could start working in a grocery store when you're what? I think in New York you
14.
get your working papers at 14.
I think so, yeah.
You know, some of your cart boys are probably maybe like 20, 21.
Right.
You know, so I think it's more realistic to almost develop like a natural relationship there, because there you're in like the same social circle.
I get it. And then that,
you know?
and okay, so what you're saying is a 14-year-old who starts as like a bagger at a grocery store, and then they have the cool older 21-year-old. He's usually emo, because emo people are red flags. Okay, and then they develop like a friendship, and then that leads to some kind of relationship, and they obviously that guy hasn't set a firm boundary. I get what you're saying. Okay, sure.
So basically in this whole big spiel, like you were saying, like I really think that it comes down to like finding ways to teach kids, teens,
Yeah,
like how to understand why doing things that are beyond them at the point they're at,
Yeah.
like why it is beyond them in a way that's not like
condescending,
speaking down on them. And like, if we're able to do that, I really do think that we'll be able to teach kids to just be kids.
Yeah, like enjoy the moment that you're in and like try to get them to just chill the fuck out.
Yeah.
But don't you feel like some of that like looking to the future bullshit has to do with consumerism, and we're constantly selling to people like or I guess kids that they want to be cooler and older?
Yeah, 100%. And that's why I'm saying I don't know how
all the invading properties.
I don't know how social media has impacted that, or how like looking into the future is worse today than it was 50, 60 years ago. I don't have that answer,
Yeah.
but I was thinking even how like I told you how I used to play Gilligan's Island.
Sure.
Now kids are pretending to do TikToks like the older girls that they see doing TikTok, except
Right.
kids are able to do that on TikTok.
Yeah, so now
You know,
have,
it's not like you're
12,
just not playing in your room
girls.
being cringy by yourself.
Now you have 12,
like you're
13-year-old
actually
yeah.
like engaging in the actual practice
and putting yourself in like a really uncomfortable situation at the very least. Like you have 12 or 13-year-old girls that are dancing on TikTok like the 18 to 20 to 30-year-old girls are dancing on TikTok, and oh, that's cool. She's shaking her ass, and then they start shaking their ass, and then they put it on TikTok, and then it probably gets to the wrong side of TikTok with like a bunch of gross men. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's so much invasion of social media. Like, a lot of it, I feel like it's so hard. You know, I feel like you have to be more aware now than ever as a parent to be like, curb a lot of this behavior.
I really do think that like education, like you were saying, like it's so much. Like, how do we combat all of it? I feel like education really is like the starting point.
But how
does
that? What does that look like? So for me, if I had to, here's how I would talk about why it's wrong. Like, it's obviously no shit. We know it's wrong on an intuitive level for like an older man to talk to a younger girl. And like you said, we don't need to go to like 13 and 30. So let's do like 13, like 22. Wildly inappropriate. But like, how do you communicate to a 13-year-old like you're getting taken advantage of? And so I guess I don't know. See, I don't know. What it sounds like what you're saying is don't try to communicate to kids. Communicate to them as people.
Yeah.
And so how I would communicate as a person is I would really break it down into two different things. I would hope that this young person already understood sexual assault, but there's like two general categories I would say of like some kind of sexual assault or sexual harassment or whatever you want to call it. And that is going to be I would say physical and mental. Like, physically speaking, a guy can, and it's usually a woman can't do this to a man, like physically do anything without some sort of manipulation, whether it's drug manipulation or like an age manipulation, right? But, so that's one aspect. But let's just say the 22-year-old isn't engaging in a physical sexual assault. Now we're talking about like more, I guess, of manipulative assault. And so that doesn't look like force. It looks like making you feel like you want to do this thing, having you want to be willing, which doesn't mean you can consent as a 13-year-old. And how there's a drastic difference between somebody that's 13 and the life experience of a 22-year-old. They're older, which makes you think that they're cool, which makes you feel like you want to do more to fit in with them. They have more money, so they have the ability to get you things that you might want that you may not otherwise be able to get that could be dangerous, like drugs or alcohol. They are still physically imposing, which could make you, even if it's just subconsciously, feel like you have to do what they want to do, especially if they get you isolated into a specific situation. And so you'd have to be careful of it. And they have like a higher life experience, so they know how to speak to you in a way that would make you feel like you had to do something and pressure you into doing something that you don't want to do because you probably just want to hang out with them, whereas they're there for like an ulterior motive. And putting yourself in that situation, which is their fault, but like sneaking out at night and hanging out with this and doing that, and that's just gonna, like, you're not gonna want to do anywhere near what that person wants to do. Trying to communicate that 22-year-old is not just there to try to be your friend. That person is most likely trying to take something from you that you don't want to give, and you don't have the capacity to give. But I wouldn't say that to the 13-year-old. I'd say like you're not going to want to give up, and you're going to feel very harmed. It's going to it can be very unfortunate and hurt you in the long term. Would that be the right way to communicate to like a kid that?
Honestly, I don't think so, because
how would you do it then?
Exactly. I think that it's still like a lot to flesh out, because I'm listening to you say that, and I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, like if I was
you were
like
a 13-year-old
me,
girl, so
like I would just hear like scare tactics, and I'd be like,
do you think I was trying to be scare tactic?
no, I don't think you were
And
trying
you would hear
to,
that as a 13-year-old
but I
girl.
hear that like, oh, like you should be afraid of. That's what I'm hearing from you. You should be
they're-
afraid because the men that you're talking to, even though you think that they like you, they're ill-intentioned. They're trying to hurt you. That's what I got from what you were
Right.
saying.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. How the fuck do you communicate?
Exactly.
That's why we
My
just need to lock them
perspective
away.
would almost be like, okay, how much older?
Insert an air tag into the inside of their under their skin. They can't get it out, and then you know where they are 24/7.
That's what I'm saying. Like
What do you
like we just have to go back to like asking parents for permission. You know.
Well, what do you do? How do you educate? Because the reality is,
My first
hold on.
step-
The reality is, it's more effective if you can get the 22-year-old to not be a creep. But the unfortunate
100%.
reality, that's the same thing as like, hey, make it so that driver doesn't hit you as you cross the road. Like, there's a reason why we have conversations about teaching kids to look both ways before they cross the street. Because even though the burden isn't on them to be as careful, it's more on the driver. You still got to talk to them about it because the drivers are going to be fucking assholes. There's going to be some people who are just pieces of shit. They're not paying attention. How the hell do you communicate to this 13-year-old?
Well, I think that even before you get to partners, you need to provide more education about like literal just sexual health. What everything is, including masturbation. And
Okay.
I think, and of course, like the religious stuff plays a role into this because of America, the way it works.
Sure, but how would educating, and I agree we need to give kids comprehensive sexual health education, teaching them alternatives to actual physical sex, teaching them safe sex practices because they're young and they're exploring and we can't stop them whether we want them or not. But educating them properly on STDs in a way that's not like a scare tactic. I agree with that. How does that help a 13-year-old go like, you know what, I don't want to interact with a 22-year-old?
Because I really do think that if you normalize sex and masturbation and stuff like that, and makes it less taboo.
Okay, so when you say I just want to be very clear because when you say normalize, you mean normalize the conversation and remove the taboo from it. Don't say, hey, you're a 13, go fuck everybody, but saying like this isn't the most taboo thing, and there are alternatives, and here are the legitimate dangers. And if you're going to engage with another person your age, make sure that you do it in the correct way. You're saying that would reduce the taboo.
I think so.
And it would reduce their likelihood of them in trying to like engaging with like an older person.
I think that's where the conversation starts. Yeah.
Okay. I gotta just that's gonna take me a few days.
Okay.
That's all I'm gonna say. Like, I'm not gonna be able to be like, oh, I agree with you. I was like, okay, that's interesting. I have to like let that sit for maybe even a week or so.
And then I also think emphasizing the like, okay, again, if we're going 13, 22, whatever
Sure.
magical number you want
Yeah,
to
I
do.
think it helps to have
like
that number,
asking
so.
like, okay, you're 13 years old. How many years older is a 22-year-old than you?
Yeah.
And then what is that math? 12?
9
9?
13 and 22, 9. Yeah.
Oh. Okay. So then what's 13 minus 9? 4 years old.
Yeah.
So
Do you think it's appropriate
as
to
you're
do with a 4-year-old?
13, like, how do you think about interacting with a 4-year-old?
Right.
Which of course is different because
It is because like there's different stages of development,
developmentally, but
that's
still,
a good
like, there's
tactic.
like, how much life have you experienced since you're 4 years old?
Yeah.
Now, how much more life do you think somebody who's 22 has experienced than you?
Yeah.
And engaging in like, okay, so how do you think you're going to be different when you're 22?
Okay.
Now, when you're imagining yourself at 22, do you think that you are going to want to hang out with people that are your age now?
Okay.
And like
All right.
exploring
That one I think is so much more effective than what I was saying.
because like I was saying, like I feel like the conversation you were having is not meant to be, but is
Right.
more fear tactics because
Well, yeah.
you're like, these are the things that are going to happen rather than putting the power in their hands to come up with their own answers.
Interesting. No, I agree. That was, I think, the best way. I feel like that's the most effective way to communicate. Did you just think of that or have you been sitting on that?
I mean, no, I don't think I just thought of it. I think about this a lot, and I think part of it is like from like the social worker perspective.
Yeah, no, okay.
Because like one day, like this could be my purpose. And honestly,
But
I don't know
that's-
how it would arise, but if I could somehow influence sex education,
In a positive way, yeah. Of
I would
course.
100% do it.
Right. I just want to be clear with like where I'm at because I think that was an excellent take, and I appreciated the journey from where we started to where we got to now. Like, I really genuinely appreciated like how we took in this 20 minutes to get to the point of like, oh, like, because when there's so many different things going through my head when we were talking about this. And one of them is like, hey, don't speak condescendingly to a kid. And then so if that triggers to me, I'm going to speak to them like an adult. But what I did was still too much for a kid to understand the way I was educating. And so you took an approach that was like much simpler and more intelligent and better applied for a young person. Like, hey, you're 13, they're 22. What's the age difference? 9? Well, how are you at 4 years old? Okay, do you feel like you grew a lot from 4 to 13? Okay, do you think you're going to grow a lot from 13 to 22? Okay, do you think do you think that you would want to date a 4-year-old now? Okay, do we think when you're 22 you'd want to date a 13-year-old? And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, that guy might be weird. All of a sudden, if she's like, holy shit, yeah, that guy, I think is that would make her sick. You're giving her the tools to go, that guy's a fucking creep, without telling her that guy's a creep.
Or also like, oh, I shouldn't be chasing this person.
Yeah.
Because like I said before, I was a chaser of older men.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that, and I know it was a very big circle and a very big path from the beginning of the conversation
to
get where we were at now. But like, and that's why I say, I think that if we are able to somehow, and I really do think it would be a great cause, even if I'm wrong in the way I'm presenting it,
the overall,
I think that I have the right spirit.
I think,
and I think that if we're able to teach kids that, then it would impact them in a positive way, not only in their ability to protect themselves from predators, but also in a way to just like act your age, engage in what things are meant for yourself.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, keep playing Ninja Turtles in your bedroom at 13 years old. Keep getting turn on the music television channel and listen to music while Stone Cold Steve Austin gives a Stone Cold Stunner to the Rock action figure you have while you play on your bed.
But like, even now, like, I'm 28 years old, and what do I do at least 3 times a week, if not 3 times a day? I'm always upset that I'm like behind on schedule of having kids.
Oh, wow. Yes. So that gets into an even bigger conversation about how we're constantly teaching people to feel uncomfortable with where they are at, rather than to be like, be comfortable where you are, have a healthy relationship with your growth, be happy and comfortable with where you are, but also acknowledge that you could do better and work towards that, but still take a deep breath and just sit in the moment and go, look at all the things that I have.
Yeah.
And that would be so positive for us, because like right now, like, we do have like a lot of student loan stuff, and we do want to have kids, and we are working towards that, and we are stressing about this. And it's not bad to stress, because some stress can be productive and help guide positive life choices. But then if I stop looking at the future for a second and I look at what I have right now, I'm married. I love you a lot. It's like the love of my life. I'm with somebody that I'm mature enough with, and we've grown enough to have kids, which is better than a lot of, or it's in a good spot for a lot of people. We still are financially capable, and we are okay. I have a job that I enjoy. I have things that I can be productive with in the now. And like, I have hobbies that I like to engage with, and those things, should be at least 50% of the conversation in my head when I'm thinking about all the ways that I feel like I could be more adequate in the future.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Blew my mind on that segment.
That's a lot.
That was.
Did we burn out with the first one?
Hey, if we did, I think this was I wasn't expecting such a heavy topic to start.
I know wasn't going to start with this either, but it made sense from the short conversation.
Yeah,
which I don't even. Because we were talking about Applebee's.
Yeah, guys. So we started with Applebee's, and we got to how to help protect children from getting predatorized.
No, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I 100%.
Like, it was a big long path.
Everything that you're saying, I think that was incredible. Even if that was the only segment we could have done today because we're burnt out, that was an incredible first segment. I loved that. That was that was the first time in a while we've had such an incredibly deep conversation.
That's how we talk in the car, guys.
Yeah,
like, you know how he always says, like, oh, like, my content's good because of the conversations I get to have with my wife. That's like how we talk.
Yeah, for me, where we started the conversation, I was very uncomfortable, especially as a man talking about young people, because we are told as a man, the way that we are educated is you need to be very aware of the impact you have on everybody else around you, whether it's young people or women. because you're scary, which I think that there's a level of truth to. I get it. I understand. I'm a 6'4" imposing man that, like, I could see why you might be afraid of me when we walk past each other. And so we're talking about this very loaded topic. It makes me a little bit uncomfortable. Some of the things you're saying make me a little uncomfortable. And then as we go through, I start to go like, oh shit, like, and I would come to a positive conclusion of like, that's how I want to talk to our kid if they ever are interested in an older person. And then if it's like one of our kids that are like, if they are the 22-year-old, the way I want to talk to them is with a bat.
No, but like
Yes.
that's the like
Yeah.
a
Sometimes
smack
you gotta
upside
give
the
him,
head and
sometimes
like
you gotta give him a firm ass kicking. Okay, interesting. I think we should do a less loaded segment next. Just that's my advocation.
yeah, I know.
There's another conversation to have based off this video though, which is the hugs conversation. But I think that's gonna be also another deep one. And if we don't get to it today, we could also do it next week.